Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and it's time for another workout. And today is dynamic effort squat and deadlift day. This is the second week of the 3-week wave with chains. So we bumped it 20 pounds and we'll do it again next time. And actually it felt surprisingly lighter. I noticed last week when I switched over to the chains, everything felt kind of hard because I'm not used to the chains. Today was actually easier even with a slightly heavier weight. So I'm getting used to it. Feel like I'm getting nice and tight with it, getting used to the chains on the box squat, and we'll probably go through the same adaptation again when I go to bands again. So we'll keep breaking things up, and it'll be a continual flow and adaptation to these things because there's a slight variation every single time that we do it. In other words, the chains versus the bands, each time we increase the weight every week with the wave, and then we switch over to the other again. So we just kind of rotate through them. Now, over time, we will slowly increase these based upon my maxes and my other work and my max effort work and things like that. And I'm going to start making more adjustments into the max effort days on the squat and deadlift days, which you guys will notice, because my goal is to eventually get to where my squat form looks very similar to my box squats, right? We want that wider stance. And it has to do with reducing range of motion a little bit, getting to where I'm just like an inch below parallel. So we break parallel still, but not going as deep so that I get all the correct hip positions to get the most weight possible. Also, I feel like I'll be able to keep my torso a little more upright to some extent when doing that, because I do actually squat high bar. That's come up. People are asking, are you squatting high bar or low bar? No, it's high bar. Weight's up on my traps. So by doing all this stuff, especially with the accommodating resistance, though, we're getting used to that thoracic rounding at the top, because where I normally do start to round a little bit, we're always going to be dealing with heavier weight. And eventually this is just going to shift over into my actual squat form looking a lot like this box squat form, right? And that's what we want, because I still squat with a narrow stance. I'm not comfortable yet with a wider stance without a box under me. Although you guys will see when I'm doing the belt squats, we're actually practicing that as well. So everything you guys are going to see is that over time, we're going to work with the sumo deadlifts to get the same thing, going to work with the box squats, and everything is going to get into that wider stance over time, because I should be able to move more weight eventually doing that. So we're just training to get better at the maxes. Also, the whole topic comes up of the wider stance versus athleticism. And that's what a lot of strength coaches do note who are out there. Look, all sports, you go with a wider stance. In fact, most of the reason you see any coach try to have people do one-legged work, those same benefits would be gained by just doing a wider stance on your squats and deadlifts. It really would. That's one of the things you'll notice that a lot of very explosive athletes, you'll notice their coaches do have them oftentimes squatting with an ultra-wide stance. There's a reason for that. So that's the direction I'm moving towards, and so my training is geared around that. A lot of it, the reason I have to train for that so much is that historically that has been a muscle weakness for me. Those parts of my thigh are underdeveloped and weak. So by getting used to doing all this stuff with a wider stance, it will carry over to my squatting, right? It'll carry over the squatting. And you guys will notice when I go to sumo deficit deadlift this week, it will be with a deficit. Sorry, I threw in the word deficit there. So I'm going to do that when I start doing the max efforts deadlifts on Mondays. I'm going to start doing those on a deficit also. People say, well, why? So that I can pull my hips in a little bit deeper on the sumo, right? And again, that'll also train me to get my torso a little more upright on the sumo. So we can learn to pull in deeper, get more upright, get better leverages, and eventually my sumo deadlift will get a lot stronger. So all of this stuff is feeding into each other, and that's what people need to understand, is that when you start dealing with some of these wider stance squats, especially the box squat, and you do a sumo deadlift and everything else, it's actually all the same movement. It's actually the same exercise. It's just that one of them, the weight's on your shoulders, and the other's in your hand. But it's actually really the same exercise, just that one is a concentric and the other has an eccentric component, and where the bar is actually placed, but the actual movement pattern itself and the muscles involved are pretty much the same. So that's why this stuff all feeds into each other, and that's one reason a system like this does use sumo deadlifts, for example, because all this wider stance box squatting and everything else carries over really well to the sumo. And so therefore you tend to just be stronger. at doing that. And that's what people need to remember. So that's one reason a lot of people who use this system of training just pull sumo. Not that they can't pull conventional, it's that their other movement patterns carry over to it better, and they're probably just better at it. Right? Just specificity of training. And from a strength and an athletic perspective, we could argue that there's a lot of athletic carryover to that. But yeah, 12 doubles today on the box squats, 12 doubles today. And like I said, they felt good. Everything was explosive. Everything was solid. I'm getting better and better at doing these explosively, as far as just getting the movement pattern down to where there's a nice smooth motion. Right? I'm getting a nice smooth bar path. I'm getting more and more explosive. And over the months, this will continue to improve. I'm finally getting it into my groove on it. And again, it works well. And what people are noticing, again, yes, I'm doing all my rows and stuff on this day also because this is all my big muscles, because I want my other 2 days to be focused entirely upon the bench press and bench press accessories. But even my lat accessories on this day are going over. They're going to go over to being a bench accessory. Because I'm at a point now to where I don't need axial loading exercises that don't improve my deadlift. I just don't. I want to be able to do more deadlift volume. That's another reason I'm doing sumo. It's actually slightly easier on the lower back. What does that mean from a recovery perspective? It means you can probably squeeze in a couple more sets every week. All right. One reason I'll be doing the max stuff, the heavier stuff with deficits. Again, slightly easier to recover from, so we can do more volume. And at this point, I don't want exercises that don't carry over to my deadlift, loading my spine at all. I don't. And the box squats carry over, and they're a reduced load on the spine. So that's how it's going to work out. Today, my hook grip felt really good. I went ahead and I got all 8 sets today. I think I did either 6 or 7 last week with the chains. This week I went ahead and I got 8, and my thumbs felt great. I'm like, man, my thumbs are holding up fantastic. That was awesome. Until I washed the chalk off, and then it's like, oh shit. And they're not that my skin didn't rip. It's that under one of my thumbs, under the callus on my thumb, it's actually black under there. It actually bruised my thumb under the callus. Got a big old bruise on it, over an inch long bruise under there. But that will be healed up come Monday, and we will be good to go. So we'll do a bunch of heavy singles on Monday off of the deficit, and just keep training this grip. Yeah, I think that's what's going to end up happening. I'm going to end up pulling 600 sumo with a hook grip is what's probably going to happen. And hey, that'll be good. No one can hate on that, man. I don't think anyone can hate on that. If I walk in with a hook grip, pulled any deadlift, sumo, conventional, whatever, with a hook grip, no straps, my age, I think that's going to be respectable. So I think that's still my goal to work towards. It's going to be my goal to work towards, and we're going to get there. Hell, it might happen this year. That'd be nice. So I am going to put a little more work into the deadlift training because I'm doing all this box squat stuff, and we're going to just run exclusively box squats for a while. The box squat will carry over to this. It will carry over to my squat. It will carry over to the sumo deadlifting. And it's going to allow me to really fine tune my squat and deadlift days, specifically towards these goals. And then it really lets me specialize more in the bench press. Because that's what people need to remember. I'm still trying to get generally strong. Just because I'm doing a little bit heavier bias towards the bench, my weakest lift, it doesn't mean that we're not giving these a serious effort. It doesn't mean we're not trying to get the squat and the deadlift to continue to go up. I just want my bench to go up faster. And my bench will always go up slower. I'm not built to bench. Right? I'm not built for the bench press like I am these other lifts. And that just means that you've got to give it more attention. And I hate it when people say stupid stuff like, well, I'm not built to squat, I can't squat. It's like, first of all, quit being a lazy pussy. Just because you're not built to do an exercise doesn't mean you can't be good at it. It just means you'll never hold a world record in it. Okay? If you're not built for an exercise, you can forget being the world record holder in it. Okay? It's that simple. That's what that means. It means there will always be someone better than you at it. But when you say I'm not built to squat, and then you think you can't get a 500-pound squat because of that, that's not true. It's like a guy who says, I'm not built to bench, I'll never bench 375, right? Well, that's not true either. Look, if you're not built to bench, you're probably never going to have a 550 raw bench. Deal with it. You're probably never going to have a 500 bench. You're not built to squat, you're never going to squat 700. Okay, that's reality. But it doesn't mean you can't be competitive. It doesn't mean you can't compete at the national level in that lift. It just means that you won't be breaking world records at it. That's literally what it means. And it means there'll always be someone who's better than you at the same body weight. And possibly the next weight class down, right? That's what it means. But we can still train these things. We can still train these things and we can improve at them. And that's what it means. Usually if you're not built in terms of leverages for an exercise, you're going to have to work a little harder at it. You have to do a little more accessory work at it. You're going to have to focus on it a little more. All right, that's what it means. And so that's what I'm having to do with the bench press. And I know that I'm not built to be the best bencher in the world, but that doesn't mean I can't put another 50 pounds on my bench press. And I will put another 50 pounds on my bench press. It will happen. It's that simple. So people have asked me with these rows, they're like, why are you doing this? Why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? I'm like, well, why would I want to do an inverted row? This is a bench press specific exercise. At this point, you know what I care about with my lat? Scapular retraction. Now, is that contrary to what I tell you guys for maximum development? Yes, absolutely. You guys really think I need to add another 3 inches of meat to my lats? I think my lats are pretty big. Do you know what I care about with my lats now? Getting tighter on the bench and improving my deadlift. Well, I'm going to be doing more and more pulling, more deadlifting. I think my lats will be just fine. I think a little bit of supplemental work like this is fine. So when I'm doing these exercises, I want the exercises for now that are going to carry over to my bench press the best and help me maintain scapular retraction. I'm not worried about adding 5 pounds of meat to my lats at this point. So an exercise like this works great. It's still a full range of motion, but it's biased towards scapular retraction, and I pause for just briefly a lot of times on the reps near the end. It puts me into a bench position. It forces me to practice trying to get tight on the bench, and I can't maintain this. Like these 20 plus reps, I can't really stay tight like I do on a bench, but it is forcing me to practice setting up on a bench, right? That will carry over to my benching. We're getting more bench specific with what I'm doing because my bench is a weak link. So this is literally the closest thing I could come up with for a lat exercise that should carry over best to my bench press. All right. And I'm not worried about stabilizers. People are like, well, if you did an inverted row, you'd get more stabilizers in your core. My core gets an enormous amount of work. Look how much squatting and deadlifting I do. Look how much ab work I do. I do glute ham. I do at least 10 sets, if not more, of glute ham device sit-ups and hyperextensions on it every single week on top of what you guys see here. My core is getting plenty of training. I don't need my lat exercises to involve my core anymore. It's just not important. In fact, I would rather not. I just want to focus on my lats and scapula and mid-traps and a tiny bit of grip work. And that's all I care about right now in rowing. That's all I need. Just to help me get tighter on my bench and to hold my scapula together better at the bottom of a deadlift. And this fits the bill. So yes, it's a fluffy exercise. It's easy to recover from, but it works. And would I advise this for most of you? Probably not. I'm bench specializing with a back that is more developed than the rest of my body. I think it'll be fine. And all that deadlifting, my back will still grow from the deadlifts alone. It will keep growing. Trust me on this, I know. I know my body at this point. Then we did belt squats. On these, I went ahead and I did a hair more workload. I didn't increase the sets today. The first set felt like I had more in the tank, so I went ahead and did 12 instead of 10. So I went ahead and just did 3 sets of 12 instead of 3 sets of 10. Now that means I probably need to be looking at adding a little more weight, another plate maybe next time. And then we'll try to get 3 sets of 10 and build it from there. Now I'm going to get to a point to where the safe rated limit for my belt is going to be reached, right? That is going to happen. And when that happens, we'll just add sets and reps. It's fine. We're just here trying to hypertrophy the quads and to give carryover to my squat and my sumo deadlift. Because this is a squat stance I want. I want this width on my squat. This is pretty similar to what I do on a sumo deadlift for now. Doesn't mean I can't take it out wider. So this is going to give me complete carryover to both exercises in a way that puts my back into traction instead of compression. There is no axial loading. You know, I've had people try to say, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that exercise in place of this? I'm like, because it would still load my spine. And if I want to put a weight on top of my spine, I'm going to squat or deadlift at this point. If I have recovery to do a front squat or a Zercher squat or anything else, why am I not doing more squatting and deadlifting? Give me one good reason. You can't. Those are bullshit exercises for my goal. I'm not saying for someone else's goal they're not, but for me, those are bullshit exercises. If I can load my spine with more weight, I might as well squat or deadlift. I could do more speed pulls. So this allows me to get a large amount of volume training in for my lower body in a movement pattern that will carry over to the squat and the deadlift. And I have to say, like, as far as just feeling this stuff in my quads and feeling my quads work in general and my hips work in general, it's tremendous. It's tremendous. Like, start doing sets of 10 with this with a weight that's challenging for you, and you'll see what I'm talking about. This is probably going to increase my squat and my deadlift. And I'm doing so without loading my spine with extra weight. It actually works better than a leg press does for this. So even people who are like, well, I could do a machine, this is actually superior. From a movement pattern perspective, from an unloading of your spine perspective, this actually puts less stress on your spine than the leg press. So this is a zero axial loading squat. All right, guys, we need to train smarter. If we want to train with very high volumes of training, and you want to train with the most frequency and volume so that you can recover from, you have to train smarter. And stuff like this starts to add up. This starts to really add up as your training workloads go up. Being very selective in these accessory movements. Getting the most bang for your buck in terms of stimulation, recovery, everything else. We can worry about some of the other factors as far as loading up maximum strength and stuff. That's what the max effort exercises are for. And I do train max effort, right? We absolutely are training max effort every single week, twice a week actually. But understand what your accessory movements are for. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.